Hello, everyone. Good morning for some of you. Good afternoon for most of you. Maybe good evening there in Europe. Today we have a mega treating-on interview with the folks from Workmate AI. Please introduce yourself, guys. We have Will and Max and Ammon here with us today. So tell me a bit more about yourself. Will, would you like to start with your introduction?
Sure, of course. I'm Will, founder and CEO of Workmate. We're building everyone's AI executive assistant. I was lucky enough earlier in my career to have an executive assistant. I found it tremendously valuable for both me personally and also professionally. And we want to democratize that, give that to everybody. So everyone can get a Workmate, everyone can get an assistant to help them with their calendar and their other busy work. I've had a long career working in various different product roles and startup roles at the intersection of AI and building high-craft consumer products. Most of the largest stint of my career was at Facebook and Instagram, where I led the discovery products at Instagram, including launching Reels and all the video new video work to help you discover what's going on Instagram beyond what you follow, and bring in new trends into the product.
No, that's
live in New York. The three of us live in New York, very involved in the New York tech scene, but we're excited to meet your global audience and hear the questions.
No, that's great. And we have here Max, CTO, and Ammon for growth at Workmate as well, right? Did I get it correctly?
Yep.
Do you guys want to do a short intro about yourselves as well?
Yeah, happy to go. I'm Max. I'm, like you mentioned, the lead product engineering here. Kind of always worked in startups. Before Workmate, I was the co-founder of a company called Titan, which is an investment management firm. At the peak, we had over $1 billion of assets. Went through a lot of growth and a lot of fun. So learned a lot there about how to build great technology, build great teams, and really excited to keep doing that here at Workmate.
And myself, Ammon Brown, I run our growth and go-to-market teams. Dabble in product a little bit, but mostly growth and go-to-market. My career's been spent largely in marketing and product across a lot of different startups, some of my own. I did a stint at Google early on and have been part of a couple of good-sized exits. And this is actually my second go-round with a scheduling company. I worked at a company called X.AI that used to do AI scheduling before LLMs were really a thing. So we're very much proud to be on the frontier here.
No, that's great. Thank you very much for being here today with us. I guess we would start with a first most important question that we ask our founders here in the channel. How did the idea of Workmate AI came to be? How did you guys find each other, and how did all this start?
Yeah, well, I was there at the beginning, so I can answer that. As I mentioned before, I'd spent a lot of my career building at the intersection of AI and new software products. And for me, I also had gotten more senior in a large company and was lucky enough that I had access to an executive assistant towards the end of my stint there. And when I got an executive assistant, it really changed my life, both personally and professionally. I found I was more productive at work. I was spending my time better. I was more balanced in my personal life. The time that I cared to protect for family time, like dinners, were more protected. And I wasn't spending so much of my time, doing the back and forth of managing my schedule and doing the calculation of like, is it worth, I really wouldn't like to do that meeting because I really have this work to do, but is it worth me spending a quarter or half the time that it would take to reschedule this meeting just to move it to a different day? And ultimately just like spending my days before I had an executive assistant less efficiently than when I had one. And So it was kind of this win-win for me, better at my work and better at life too, or more balanced in my life. And it felt like with AI, we could democratize that and give way more people access to that. It's having a human executive assistant is a pretty expensive service, and most people aren't lucky enough to have that. And I think there's a really good parallel to like private chauffeurs and ride sharing apps, where like having a private chauffeur was something that was reserved for the few and the rich 20 years ago, and now we're at a place where everyone has access to some version of it all over the world. And I think for knowledge workers, executive assistants will be that. And we started with scheduling because executive assistants in the workforce do scheduling as their number one task today. And our hypothesis is that by getting really good at that, then we earn the right to help people with way more of the busy work and accelerate their work in other ways. So yeah, that's how it kind of started and why we started this way. And in terms of how we got together, it's been a great journey for me to like build out the founding team here at Workmate. And I was lucky enough to meet Ammon basically because he had worked at the original X.AI and was in the scheduling world. And Max, we wanted someone to lead our engineering team who had deep roots in the New York startup ecosystem and also was really excited about building an AI first company from the ground up. And with both of them, I just met them at the right time. Do you guys want to add anything?
That's amazing. So that's kind of the Uber, but for different paying. The main idea is to democratize the access for having personal assistants that understand about your needs, that can do scheduling. Of course, this is the most common way that we interface with personal assistants, right? But there are a lot of other things, booking flights, hotels, and vacations and travels and all of that included. So that's a great use case. I am already positive towards Workmate.
And just to highlight something, like one of the things that we care a lot about is that we're being useful to you at work. And so you can think of your workmate as another member of your team, a teammate. And so we're not really focused on like helping you book your personal vacations with your family or get dinner reservations for your date nights. We're focused on the work use cases, and like giving teams access to this assistant who can help everyone with scheduling on the whole team or the whole company, and then over time help everyone collaborate with everyone on a number of tasks.
No, that's great. And tell me about more. How was the initial steps? How did you go? Went to market in the early stages? Because nowadays it's very common first to see OpenClaw connected to WhatsApp on Telegram, doing things on our behalf, both in the professional side and in the personal side. Sometimes even with security flaws, as we saw. But a few years ago, that was kind of it was very difficult to automate intelligent workflows before LLMs and GPTs, and even the first versions, it was very difficult to reduce hallucinations, right? So tell me a bit more of our early days and how did it play out?
Yeah, I would say that we're just at the very early stages, like in the very first inning of intelligent AI teammates that do real work, and even with OpenClaw that you mentioned and all these other things, it's common in a certain bubble, but I don't think it's become mainstream yet. And I think one of the reasons why is because the quality is great for a demo, but it's not yet great in many things for it's not yet ready for prime time, and it's very hard to get horizontal tools great at a specific task repeatedly to the point where you're willing to put them in the middle of your customer relationships and company relationships, client relationships. And so, we started the company around 2 years ago, and you're right, then things were harder, and we can talk about how our building strategy has evolved as things have improved. We've always been very focused on trying to get really good at one thing before we go broader. And we can talk about how maybe the technology has evolved where other strategies now could work. But, we've been very focused on saying, okay, we talked to a lot of executive assistants. We said, what do you do? The number one thing that they do is scheduling. We talked to people who have executive assistants. What value are you getting? The number one value that people are getting is calendar management and scheduling. And so we thought that we spent 2 years kind of getting really good at that one thing. And I can say that our demo at the end of the first 2 months was pretty good at that, was okay at that one thing. But there are so many edge cases and different scenarios that you encounter when trying to schedule, and it's taken us a long time to get good at all of them to the level where you can surprise and delight and consistently deliver on the promise for people when they're making 50, 100 requests and expecting, like a human would, that the vast majority of them would be worked on successfully.
Yeah, those scenarios that it's easy to play but hard to master. Most of these tools that people are vibe coding right now, they are very good for the most common happy scenarios, but you encounter the edge cases, situation integration here or there, they start to fail, right? So you guys have been working in this kind of polishing and refining in this use case for 2 years now, and this is why Workmate AI is so efficient as it is and so stable as it is, right? See, interesting feedback for everyone watching. If you're planning to build something in the AI space and you see a lot of customer feedbacks out there, this is a very valuable feedback. Narrow down, focusing on one thing, go deep on that, and make it your killer product, because then you can expand for more things later after you got the trust of your early users, right? That's kind of the idea here, right, Bill?
Yeah. There's also a lot of discovered complexity in when you go deep in something. Like Will said, with scheduling, it's actually the point of edge cases that it's just every meeting we schedule is almost unique, and so there's a lot of ambiguity. There's a lot of just little small decisions along the way to be made at every step. What can we move, and if there's 6 different people. And so as you really focus on that complexity, you can solve deeper and deeper levels of it. And that kind of trains us as a team to tackle the next problem and go deep on that one. And so that's sort of the strategy.
Yeah. Great setup strategy there. And tell me a bit more about the product. How are you able to reduce the hallucinations and the hiccups that those integrations usually they happen to fail on those edge scenarios without spilling out the magic, of course. But tell me a bit of how it works behind the scenes.
Yeah, without spilling the magic, like you said, the answer is simple but not easy, which is lots of evals, lots of tests, lots of real thought into the prompts, right? Our prompts are all kind of handwritten and reviewed by us. They're not vibe coded. You write the prompt, have the agent write its own prompt, right? So we spend a lot, like Ammon said, as we've discovered this complexity, we've seen what early versions of the prompt are good or bad at. And we go in, we make deliberate changes to the prompt to reflect what we learn, and we add more layers of complexity, and then we add more evals and more tests, and we just do this over and over and over again. Like I said, it's very simple. It's not very easy, but it's very simple to just have this feedback loop, and constantly making the agent better at handling more and more complex cases. And then, often one of the funnest things about working, like Will said, at this cutting edge of AI is you end up with these nice surprises where you actually haven't told the agent how to do something, but then it actually does a pretty good job based on how you've done the prompt so far. And it's a great feeling to have that reinforcement, like, oh, the prompt's actually pretty well written and the agent's pretty powerful already, that it doesn't need a bunch of special handholding. Like you asked earlier about how did the first version of the prompt work, or the first version of the product, and like back 2 years ago when the models were dumber and the systems were dumber, you had to do a lot of handholding. They're like, you must do these 7 steps in exactly this order with exactly these parameters. And now as the models have advanced and the tooling around it has advanced, you can build much more generic solutions that are much more powerful, and that can handle things you didn't think they would be able to handle, but it's very magical when they do.
That's interesting. So for all the founders there, want to add something, Will, before?
Yeah, I just also wanted to add that, like, we want, the promise that we make to our customers is that we're going to get it right 100% of the time from scheduling. And that means that we also have built an elaborate system to escalate, for the AI to escalate to a human when needed. And that was a very intentional thing that we built as our product evolved, because of the quality bar that people have when CCing an assistant into a external customer relationship, client relationship in the middle of a conversation about a deal. Those things those are sensitive, important conversations. And while the scheduling is a pain in the neck, some people view it as it's necessary to get right, and so we need to be right all the time. And that means that, some requests are easy and other requests are harder. And we do have a team that the AI can escalate to of expert assistants who can help with some of the harder requests. And over time, we've also gotten better at building them tools to be more and more efficient and to automate their work more and more. And so we kind of have like 2 layers of our system. The first system is like the core AI agent, and then the other system is the team of humans and AI graders that are in the loop to help validate the core agent and decide what level of review is necessary in order to execute an action that the agent recommends.
That's great, because it goes even beyond the just automating. It actually starts reducing the human error there. So a lot of value addition.
And now our system is way quicker and also way less error prone than a human.
Yeah, that's the killer selling point for me, at least. It almost seems like an iceberg. Oh, it's just a scheduling app, okay, but when you see behind the scenes, there's a lot there. Maybe let me add a funny fact there. When I reached out to Ammon on all the connection that I had to him, I used a scheduling agent there. Instead of using Workmate, I wasn't very familiar with it at the time. And it mistook the time zones when doing the scheduling. And to prevent further error, I asked my team, Augusto, my assistant, my coordinator, and my VA to actually schedule this interview. And they also, they made the human mistake that they scheduled for PST instead of EST, remember? So getting to 100%, it's not just automating scheduling. It's something beyond this, actually guaranteeing that your scheduling is going to be correct, something that even humans error sometimes. So that's a way higher value prop than just automating a task, right?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Like in these types of tasks, like Will said, it's outward facing and it's embarrassing to have mistakes. And if we're going to get blamed for most of those mistakes, and so we have to be pretty much perfect. Even if the user said the wrong thing and said the wrong time zone, we still get blamed. And so we recognize that when there's a lot of ambiguity, our humans in the loop are able to pick up on that and address it on behalf of our users in more complex scenarios.
No, that's great. Max, if you allow me a follow-up question on your explanation, the topic of automation is very common in our community. Automation for sales, automation for logistics, for records, document sharing, and all. And we see people using NAN, we see people using CreepAI to actually drag and drop actions and all, but then you lose all of the flexibility of LLMs. In the other hand, when you use LLMs, you need all of this prompt engineering, like we were describing. So again, without revealing the magic, there is a sweet spot there where you can recommend people where to trust LLMs and where to actually build the harnesses that are needed for the agents to properly do the function callings and context and all.
Yeah, that's a great question. It's definitely more art than science there. The way it kind of works, the way I think about it is something similar to what you said. Like the agents have been trained to do things pretty well, right? Like they've done a lot of like OpenAI, whatever the model providers have all built. It knows how to do tool calls. It knows how to understand about like how to pass function to tool calls, how to reason about errors when it gets back tool calls. So I don't think you need to do a lot of like magic there, but what you do need to spend some time thinking about is like, what is the right tool, and building a tool in a way that is going to make sense for the agent. Give it the right number of examples, which again is more art than science. It's not none, but it's not 25 either. If you have 25 examples, your tool is too complicated. And I think really what has blown up over the last couple of months is, right, Claude Code is the great example. Claude Cowork, all things like, if you actually look at the internals of Claude Code, it actually has a relatively small set of core tools, but those tools it knows really well, and it knows how to compose them and how to recover from errors. Where if it tries to, read this file that doesn't exist, okay, let me now do search for that, for files related to that name, and vice versa. And so I think our tools are not as simple as this, but a lot of our tools are kind of like read email, create email, read calendar, create calendar, like these really simple composable tools that the agent can figure out how to use relatively easily without needing a ton of domain context.
That's great. So it's not necessary to have like a custom trained fine-tuned model for that. You can still use normal LLMs, but give those directions, and AI can handle it from there, right?
Yeah, with the right tools. And I think you mentioned OpenClaw earlier, like skill, which actually Claude built this original idea, but skills is another thing. Like with the right skills and the right tools, the agents, the LLMs themselves are very good at calling things and understanding how to call them. So it's really about how do you create the right tools. We've played around with fine-tuning a little bit, but it really hasn't paid off in a way that mattered to us. So I think for most of your listeners and most people building things, fine-tuning is not going to really pay off. From talking with people who I know who work at like OpenAI and Anthropic, fine-tuning is very valuable when you want to make a stupider model smart in a very narrow way to save on like tokens and cost. But that's like a very scale-driven play that you don't really need as a small company or as a builder.
Oh, that's
I also
great.
think that's evolved over time.
Yes, like so that's really dependent on the last couple of months.
Yeah, the last couple months around skills and like the models being really good at doing complex tool calls and using a lot of different skills, and then maybe the last year in terms of tool calls more generally and having a very agentic architecture. Prior to that, we had an architecture that was much more hand-holding and much more workflows based. And that one, it just got really hard to anticipate all the different possibilities and instruct for that. And so relying on the core intelligence of the models more and more has served us well and reduced the need for fine-tuning and some of the more complex stuff that was maybe necessary to get one particular part of a broader workflow to work a few years ago.
Yeah, that's true. As the models evolve in precision tool calling and context length, and now also the product becomes smarter.
I will also add one more thing, which is that like one thing that is still not solved is having an AI that shows up at work like a real person and has for whatever reason, like you can kind of tell when you're talking to an AI versus when you're talking to a person, and providing the right level of details versus the wrong level of details externally, and having the exactly right style and tone. And so we have spent a lot of time adding a layer on top of our core agent that just improves the writing to feel more human, passively human, and with the right level of details, the right style, and the right tone. And that is where we do have experimented more deeply with fine tuning and other techniques to make that last mile feel really good.
I see. It's not only about precision. It's like sounding human or sounding like the person that you want to kind of impersonate or something like that, right?
Yeah, and in some ways the precision even matters less than that in certain cases for that use case. Like, if it would be pretty bad if if your assistant offered a time that you were busy, but like if it's just one time in a list of many times, for example, you may not catch it, or the other person might not choose that time, or if they do choose that time, then you can go back and say, oops, sorry, something was scheduled during that time. So the precision there is well important. It's not like as important as just making sure that the email at first glance appears like it's from something intelligent. And that can be more nuanced than just, is it English and is it grammatically correct? It's about the right level of detail, for example. And just to give one small example, it's like we had this recurring issue that kept coming up, where our AI system would always want to include the actual URL of a Google Meet or Zoom link in the email when it was saying that it's scheduled. Like, maybe for a podcast, if you have to log into a platform, you would do that. But like for a normal meeting, no assistant would like include the URL. People assume that they're going to find it in the invite. But for whatever reason, that was something that is something that AI just really wants to go above and beyond and include all the details. And so a lot of what we do is about determining what are the details that need to be shared and that don't need to be shared in that moment to feel human.
And how do you deal with the M dashes?
I think the whole M dash meme is kind of annoying. I actually love M dashes and used to write with them a lot, but now if I use them, people think that I'm using AI. So we don't really have that problem with M dashes that much, but we do have another problem with times. Like, if you were writing like, let's meet at 1 p.m. tomorrow, you're not going to say 1:00. You're going to say 1 p.m. And so we do all. That's another thing that we have to be very specific about, the proper way to format times. And in the training data of these models, like, it's not as finicky on the proper way to format time. Probably a lot of it is like
ISO.
Yeah, ISO strings or whatever. And so we do it. There are like multiple lines in our prompts that are like, this is how you must format times.
Yeah, I imagine like dates, European dates and United States dates, and imagine the AI commits a mistake, and then, oh, you're absolutely right. These kind of cliches that the AI would do, right? So you guys have specific prompts to prevent these.
It's not necessarily wrong either, right? But it just feels like it's not. It feels more robotic than human, and what we're going for is a human colleague. And a lot of our customers are using white labeling, so it's not even obvious on the other side that they're talking with an AI product, but rather just another member of that team.
Makes sense. Yeah. So this is why I say it's not only about precision, it's like the looks and feels of it, including M dashes and not. I wish I was smart enough to know they look beautiful, but I don't know the length of them. There are different meanings. So, of course, it looked like AI when. If you see me writing M dashes, it's probably an AI, okay? Going to add something, Ammon?
No, good.
No, that's great. I wanted to ask, again, in the early stages of Workmate, the first and maybe even the second year, about this journey of scaling up, because most of our founders are in the early stage of journey. Like less than 10% of them even receive the first investor check yet, or some of them are bootstrapping without revenue. So you guys are one step ahead. You are scaling up, getting markets, expanding maybe globally. How was this journey? Was it always an easy ride from beginning? Tell me a little more about that. Maybe you want to frame it, Will, on your experience since the early days.
I think I was lucky personally because I had spent almost a decade at Facebook prior to it being Meta. I was in the I lived in the Bay Area for 5 years. I know a lot of people who like to fund startups, who have started companies, who are VCs. And so, I had kind of been preparing for many years to start my thing and building my network. And so I think I kind of had a unique situation where that was easier for me than if I had done it when I was in college, for example. But I still think that there are a lot of things at the early stage beyond fundraising that are in fact much more important and that are not appreciably easier for someone who has spent 10 years building versus someone who's just in college or just graduated. And so I think startups are pretty level playing fields in that regard. And the most important thing is just to start building and start selling. And if you're growing, then good things will happen in the long run.
Yeah, it's to keep enduring, right? Yeah. Why did you say you were lucky? Like connections, or did you eventually stumble up like $1 million lying somewhere? What was the luck factor there?
Yeah, I was just lucky to be able to have connections and like both people I could hire and people who wanted to give money and who wanted to support what I was doing. And yeah, so that was lucky, but I actually don't think that it matters that much in the end. Like, you're going to get to Series A if you're growing and you've picked the right market and you're selling. And if you don't, you're not. And so I do think that people overly focus on the fundraising milestones of early stage companies and not enough on the growth milestones of early stage companies. And especially today with AI, like, if you have something that people want, it's very possible to grow with very few resources other than that.
Yeah. No, that's profound. Yeah, you call it luck, but we know that's not like luck. Like you earned it somehow. You had the connections, or you had to spend time on that, of course.
Yeah, but I do think that startups are great equalizers. Maybe I had a slight advantage there, but anybody who just starts selling things and building a business can raise money these days if they have something that's worth raising money for, and is growing. And so just I would say to your audience that don't focus too much on whether you can raise the money to do something. Just try to do it and focus on whether you can build the business. And the money that you need you should only get the money that you need to build the business.
Yeah.
There's kind of a shift in thinking of focusing on the problem that you're solving. And when Will was founding Workmate, he was focusing on solving that problem. Like, he had a problem, he got a solution, he was an EA, and he said, well, I'll go address that. And so, for us, we're kind of fortunate from a go-to-market perspective that we're solving a problem that is kind of universal. It's like scheduling is a chore. It's a pain it's a pain. People don't like doing it. And there's a lot of those types of chores that you can address. But when you're solving a real pain for the user, it gets a little bit easier to grow when you don't have to do much explaining about the product. You say, do you hate scheduling meetings? Yeah. Do you want an AI to do it for you? Yeah. And that's the end of the conversation. It kind of smooths the path for go-to-market.
No, that's amazing. Yeah, maybe I can a question on there, Ammon, about what kind of problems are worth solving, because now anyone can open Lovable, whatever, and start building something, right? We know that's not that easy, but people think that is. And a lot of time we end up wasting months, sometimes years, in a problem that it's just not there. It's not like clear, like scheduling meetings. It's something obscure and weird that's not going to attract customers. It's not the correct message and all. And you have worked with a lot of startups. You all have worked with a lot of startups, right? So what would be your general advice for founders in this stage?
I think my advice would be validate with real people, because my problem that I'm going to solve with software might not be a universal problem that everybody else has. And then I've just created something that is only useful to me. And so talking to users early on, first solving your own problem, but then talking to other people and validating that, yeah, that is a problem and that there are plenty of people that understand the problem and want it solved.
Yeah. One other thing I'd add to that is you have to validate that not only that there's a problem out there, but that your solution resonates and that your solution is universal. Like if there's a problem that everyone has, but everyone wants it solved their way, then maybe now with AI, you can make it possible for everyone to like create their own app, but to solve that problem quickly. But before that, at least it's not only necessary to talk about a problem, but also talk about a solution, and then also talk about whether that solution is something that they're willing to pay for, and that is 10x better than whatever solution they're currently using to solve that problem.
Yeah, and sometimes you kind of have to coach them a little bit, because if you say, do you want an EA? They'd say, yeah. And then if the other person has an EA, they expect that they talk to each other. But you can go to people and say, look, if everybody's using Workmate, it can schedule meetings instantaneously. And they're like, oh, I never thought of that. And so you can kind of like provide a new way to solve the same problem that is even more efficient. And a user isn't going to volunteer that to you. They're not going to give you that idea, but they'll respond to it. So you kind of have to coax them a little bit with, here's some ideas that might work. And they go, oh yeah, that's the one.
But that's interesting. It's about vision, right? Seeing the network effect of things when it's not there. Imagine when we used to move from A to B using horses, and then annoying cars are out there occupying the road as you want to move with your horse. But then everyone started using cars, and then boom, the visionaries that wanted to do cars before everyone else, they have the upper hand. So this kind of positioning and vision, it's very important for early stage startups, like you guys had a couple of years ago, right?
Yeah, and my analogy on that is that when they built cars, why didn't they just build a mechanical horse? It's like, well, a car is actually more efficient at doing the same job, just in a very different form factor. And I think that that's applicable to a lot of what we're doing with AI assistants, that you can do things in a different way with different tooling that still feels like the old way of doing it, but is much more efficient.
I wonder if they could have actually built a mechanical horse. Like, we're only just getting to the humanoids they can stand.
I see humanoids.
Maybe they built the car. Maybe they built the car because it was possible to roll something on tires and not have legs.
There's the famous Henry Ford quote that is related to all this, which is like, if I asked people what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse. Yeah. So Ammon's right. You need to listen to your users, but you don't want to listen to them so much that you get locked in.
You're just taking orders. Yeah.
But I bet a lot of farmers went missing on the free fertilizer they would receive on the pets, right? But I don't think we could make cars do that. Because that's a minor detail, right? But that's great. It gives a lot of clarity on the early stages, like getting your idea correct, to put it into market, develop it correctly, like Max was explaining. A lot of people focus on that. Oh, if I build my product well, it's going to conquer the markets. But that's only one factor of it. Which brings to my final broad question or theme for this interview. How is it go to market for Workmate? Even now, considering that like Google is offering scheduling automatically, most of the AI agents are doing that. The big tech companies are doing that. How do you find a niche and deliver and grow your user base, your brand out there in this challenging landscape out there?
I think us and a couple other startups are unique in that we're helping you do scheduling the way a teammate that joined your team would do scheduling on your behalf. And that's sort of like very high touch, very personalized. And I think we see that the like Google, for example, you named, or Microsoft to help you like write your scheduling emails a little bit better and send links. They're always going to do something that is sort of more native into your own personal email workflow versus feeling like a separate teammate. And so, one of the things that we have done that we feel very strongly about, and I think is pretty unique in the market, is that we let you have a workmate who isn't you in your company, who has their own email address, who you CC exactly the way that if you hired a teammate or the executive assistant that I had, had their own identity internally in Slack and externally in email. And so we're doing it a different way. And that way works really well for people who are doing a lot of back and forth of scheduling over email with external parties in industries that are used to dealing with assistants and where it's appropriate. And so, we've found a market that is definitely more narrow than the entire Gmail market. But that's a good thing because that means that we can build something deeper and more valuable for that group of people than the horizontal, broad free tools will build.
This makes sense. Want to add something, Ammon or Max?
There's also, like, from a go-to-market perspective, there's this idea of being cross-platform where we're agnostic as to what we'll connect with. Microsoft and Google, I think the larger hyperscalers, they prefer people stay in their walled gardens, and that gives us a little bit of an advantage. And also, we're dealing with what is a very large total addressable market to us, but it's a rounding error to some of the bigger companies. And so, again, what Will was saying is that they're kind of focused on what we call single player mode, which is help me manage my calendar, help me manage my email. We're much more focused on the multiplayer mode, which is let me schedule with that person over there and that person over there, and sort of involving
with my team members.
Yeah, and that builds a much exponentially more complex product and more complex problem to solve.
Yeah, because it kind of feels like a human in the loop somehow, but it's an AI, but it feels human because it has an email address or something like that.
Yeah, that gives us an advantage as well. We let people choose, and it's probably about more than half of people prefer that it feel very human, but there's some that prefer that it is well known that it's a robot. And we support both use cases.
Okay, yeah. Imagine what happens when people send like attachments, something like that, because it's just an email address, right? You guys deal with all of those edge scenarios, I hope.
Yeah, it's just an email address. Also, it's just a phone number and just a person on Slack too.
Yeah, so that's a brilliant interface because a lot of these all the integrations, for example, Google, it's a button there, but most people miss that, and then when they click, they don't know how to use. There are 3 little dots. If you don't put your face in the screen, you can't see them. So a lot of these platforms overcomplicate that. Even Google, Microsoft Teams, and you guys are making it as simple as possible. It's like a workmate, someone that joined your team, and this is kind of a competitive edge there, right?
Yeah.
But going back to the top of going to market, so you do have a competitive edge, of course. And what are the strategies for acquiring clients to put your brand out there, rather than coming to podcasts like this? Well, what are the strategies that you guys put in place?
We've got all of our eggs in this basket. This is make or break for us, this podcast now. There's a couple of things. So, a lot of channels are saturated. They're competitive, but still work well. Like Google works well, SEO works well for us, AEO is starting to take hold, but we also have an inherently viral product. Like a scheduling product is useless if you're not scheduling with someone else. And so we always have an opportunity every time one of our users schedules a meeting to delight their guest in the meeting to the point that they want to sign up. And so we can build the product in such a way that it encourages people to join in. And so that kind of, again, gives us a little bit of an unfair advantage in our go-to-market.
Well, that's great.
Yeah, we're also doing the traditional, PLG, product-led sales approach where people are coming in the door and sometimes one person at a larger place that may want Workmate, and then we use that if they have a great experience, we use that as an entree to reach out to them, and we do have a more sales-led component of our GTM as well.
Interesting. And you mentioned that you do white label as well. It's like B2B2C or something like that.
It's not B2B2C. It's just white label B2B purely for our business plan for our larger customers of more than 10 people. They can one of the things that we offer is they can have the Workmate's email address be at their own domain rather than our domain, and have none of the Workmate branding associated with it. So they can name their Workmate whatever they want. And so, there's on the guest side, there would be no difference between feeling like it was just another person who works at the company or works remotely at that company rather than an AI.
Oh, makes sense. But you still hold the infra, the database, the connections, all, but like,
yes,
you're providing that for the end user.
Yes.
No, that's great. Before we go to the questions, we have a couple of them coming. Do you guys want to do a 5 minutes explanation on how to get started with Workmate? I do have a link here, so if all of you watching here, if you want to test it right now, we can go to this link and subscribe and create your account right now. So what would be the step-by-step for people getting into your...
One of the magical parts of our product is that I definitely don't need 5 minutes to explain this.
Okay, 5 seconds then, go.
It works exactly the same way a human executive assistant works. If you've ever dealt with one, same thing. You CC it, you can text your Workmate, and they'll handle the back and forth of scheduling. The way to get started, you go to workmate.com, you click Get Started, and you'll just go through, you'll select your Workmate. You can decide whether you want it to be pick from a number of names and emails that we have at our domain, or set up your own domain, set your work hours, connect your calendar. And then you can talk to it just like you would a person around what your preferences are. And if you want to get a little bit more of a guided experience, we have a settings page, the homepage of our app, where you can it prompts you in certain things that your assistant assumes about you that you can change really easily. So you can just go through there, and if you prefer to work at certain times, you can do that. If you prefer to have to communicate things via code words, you can set some code words that communicate things. If you prefer to share some instructions in natural language like you would a person, you can do that. And you can easily get started in 5 minutes. You can set up the white labeling in another 5 minutes, and you can start CCing your Workmate in under 10 minutes.
No, that's great. Do I need to configure browse like languages or support messages or sales messages on it, or it's like intelligent enough to detect?
No.
Yeah, I mean, it's you want to configure what you need to configure. It's a lot like onboarding a human assistant. You just explain how you like to meet, when you like to meet, where you like to meet, and then we have, you can get as detailed as you want, or just set the basics. Like we'll set the hours that I work and where I like to meet.
Sounds quite easy. Any catch, or is this that? Then you pay.
I mean, the only thing is you have to be able to connect your work calendar. This is meant for work. And so, what's the catch if you work for a bigger company where they restrict access to your calendar to apps like ours? Then you might have to put us in touch with your IT team, and we might have to go through a security review. And that's all stuff that we're used to doing. And that also unlocks much bigger customers for us. Yeah.
But when you say like integrating the calendar, it can be my Google Calendar, my Microsoft Calendar. Could be
exactly.
Is Ultra APIs, or do you need to give an advanced access?
Ultra API, and Yeah, just through the standard connect your calendar, log in with Google or Microsoft. And we only need access to your calendar to be useful. And then if you want to set up your custom assistant on your domain, then you create the email address on that domain and you get started that way, and you connect the inbox for that email address. Also,
okay. Like domain configuration with MX records, this kind of stuff.
No, you just create like a new account on Google Workspace for your workmate. Let's say she's named Jill at yourcompany.com. And then you have access to that account just the way if you hired an intern or a new employee. And then you sign in and create a Workmate account for Jill. And then you're good to go. And for that account, you'll just have give access to the email inbox rather than just the calendar.
That's super convenient because most people don't know how to do this kind of integration. So if you can just plug in a mailbox that's already created, that's great.
We kept it simple by design because our users are not always tech savvy. We cross-cut many different markets very horizontally, and a lot of them just aren't going to know how to do a DNS record.
No, that's great. So it's super easy to sign up. Everyone watching here, workmate.com. You saw the explanation. It's more for professional workload right now. If you want to use it for personal, I don't know if you guys support personal calendars, maybe.
It works, and we even have a free plan. So if you're not doing a lot of scheduling, you can schedule 10 meetings a month for free, totally free. And if that's where you want to get started, that's great.
Wonderful.
Although I do really recommend connecting your work calendar and using it for work. It's meant for work.
Yeah, it seems like the main course. And we have one question for now. I guess that's going to be easy. Do you guys have time, like 5 minutes or so? For
of course, however, all the questions.
Some of them would pop up. What happens if the AI agent goes offline? Let's say the servers melt, something like that. Is there a backup, or how do you guys handle that?
We designed the system to be highly available. So it runs on hardware that's distributed across multiple data centers in multiple regions and in ways that the agent doesn't really go offline. There's lots of, I don't want to get too deep in the weeds technically, but there's lots of queues and lots of redundancy so that even if for some reason an agent can't process a given message, we can retry that message really easily. We can retry things in order because obviously when you're processing these messages, order is very important. And so thankfully this doesn't, because of the way we designed the system, this is not really possible. If you're like, well, what if the whole data center blows up? Well, then there are different problems if that happens. But from our system's perspective, we have highly available systems with a lot of redundancy to make sure that all messages are always seen in order, only seen once, because although the agent is relatively smart about not doing the same thing multiple times, if you give it the same message multiple times, it will get confused eventually, the way a human would. They'd be like, wait, is this the same message? Is this a different message? And so we design systems to not really have this problem, thankfully.
I would also add that our AI agent doesn't go offline, and your human executive assistant does go offline every night.
That's true.
Yeah. I guess it's more asking like, what if it misses an email? Maybe what?
I think that's a lot of the engineering that we do. That's a lot of the engineering that we do. Like, like if you're just going, these are the kind of things that if you just connect an email inbox to like, Claude out of the box or ChatGPT out of the box that you'll miss, like maybe it does miss an email, but we're not going to miss it. We've done engineering to make our system reliable for this use case.
Yeah.
No, that's great. This is the product investment in coming place, right? Go on, Ammon.
I was going to say, it's an advantage of being largely based as an email agent and an SMS agent is that we still receive the email, we still receive the SMS, and if our agent, for whatever reason, is offline, like Max said, we just reprocess later.
Oh, that's true, yeah. You can always go back, read like IMAP or POP or something like that, and the emails are there. Yeah. just to make sure to not double fire. But then Max was explaining that the agents can detect that. Oh, if this is like a backup of something that I had before, it's a very intelligent workflow.
Emails are pretty much for technology.
Seems like a simple use case, but a lot of possible hiccups. And I guess we covered this, but that is a interesting question here on your point of view. How you differ from Calendly, one of the most used tools out there.
Yeah,
You want to review on that?
A couple of ways that we differ from Calendly. We do it the human way. Calendly does it the link way. And so what are some reasons why the human way is better than the link way? One is when you send a Calendly link, you're kind of putting the burden on other people to go and do it. And in order to do that, you have to give all your availability and let them choose. So you're also giving up some of the control. And so what do we do instead? One, you keep the burden on yourself and your product, because your workmate will respond and let them respond over email rather than having to go to their web browser. And your workmate will respond with only a couple times at first that work for you, up to 9 times. And so they're picking from times that are best for you at the beginning, rather than picking from all the times and exposing your whole availability, or having to do some tricks to artificially limit your availability, which may push the meetings out. And so we're really doing it in a way that is like better for busy people, because schedules are dynamic, and the social constraints are also real, and this works better for a segment of the population that is hesitant to use links. And the other thing that's way better about Workmate is follow-ups. Workmate automatically follows up if they don't respond. So if you send a Calendly link to someone, you have to be the one to make sure that they follow up if they don't click the link and book, and that you remember to follow up. But when you CC Workmate, it's really fire and forget, because the Workmate will follow up. And so in many cases, I've CC'd Workmate and the meeting gets booked without me even having to care about it. If it's a cold lead, remember who the person was even, and it just pops up on my calendar. And I trust that Workmate will always follow up and let me know if the follow-ups aren't working. Whereas with Calendly, you have to remember whether they did it. And then when they book the meeting, it will come in a separate email. And so it's very, meetings get dropped and balls get dropped and leads get dropped because of those links. They seem simple on the surface, but they're actually harder to manage than a teammate. And I think for people who are really busy, Calendly is hard because they're very busy. Things can get moved, sometimes need to get moved around to accommodate their scheduling's a lot more nuanced. And so we see that our competition is much more people doing it themselves or having a human executive assistant than it is Calendly for the people who find Workmate to be a really good fit.
Yeah. Even though about Workmate, I was still testing with those odd scheduling tools, because the problems of Calendly, you give a link and then the person can keep booking with that same link. Sometimes people book without asking you. They share the link with other people.
Oh,
you have 3 random meetings in your week that you.
That's another one. Or it makes it so easy to reschedule that they just go 5 minutes before the meeting after you've planned your whole day around it, and they move it.
Yeah, happened dozens of times. So I get it. It's painful, but it's interesting how you're niching down. This is a good strategy as well to incentivize other founders to find a niche, not try to solve everything from the beginning. You can always add other features later, right?
Yep.
Yeah, we are almost at the end of 1 hour. That was fast. Twice as fast.
Yeah.
Do you guys want to give a last notes for people watching us? This is going to be hosted in our YouTube channel and the socials as well. So people watching this in the future, any last words, last comments?
I mean, it is dead simple to use and it's dead simple to sign up. So we're very much on a mission to take busy work out of people's lives, and that's starting with scheduling. And that's, like I said, a very salient problem, but hopefully, if I'm speaking to people in the future, we're doing an awful lot more, so you should come check it out.
That's true.
I'll just add that it's very easy. We're happy to sweeten the pot a little bit too. So we have a normal free 2-week free trial on any of our plans, but feel free to email us, and you can contact us on our website or email support at workmate.com. And if you start a free trial, we're happy to extend your free trial to be a little longer if you email us and say that you heard about Workmate through this podcast.
No, that's great. And in the future, if you want to book one of those interviews, you can contact Mateus Bot at Venture Miner, and Workmate is going to schedule that for you. That's something you can do. I'm going to get that done. So I would like to thank you, all of you guys, for being here. Will, Max, Ammon, for lending your time, your expertise for this channel. If you are interested, all of you there watching, if you're interested in all of those events, you can like and subscribe here in the channel, but I would ask you to come to this page in this platform called luma.com/ventureminer, because then you're going to see all of our events. We have interviews, we have workshops, we have hackathons, we do things virtual, in person. I met Ammon there in New York, one of the hackathons that we did. So subscribe to this calendar as well. We might have an event nearby you. We might have a virtual event that you can participate as well, and some perks, eventual perks like free credits to platforms or some things like that. So thank you all for watching. Thank you again, Will, Max, Ammon, for being here with us. That was a great interview, triple great interview.
Thank you. Thank you, Matthias.
Have a wonderful day. Thank you all. Bye-bye.